Mackenzie Janson, and I'm one of the tutors for the Mindfulness Association. And I'd like to say a little bit about the Mindfulness Level 2, Responding with Compassion. So after people have done a Mindfulness Level 1 course, they will have really gotten a sense of the two aspects that together make up our mindfulness training. And one aspect is the technique, kind of the what do we do, where do we place our attention, how do we work with our mind. And the other aspect is the attitude, how do we do it. Because you can actually do a very simple thing like coming back to the support in so many different ways, with a kind of, a stern feeling of you should have not drifted off, or with a kind of annoyance at, I'm not good at this and I wasn't good at that thing either, and all these stories can build up. Or we can cultivate this basic friendliness to ourselves, the sense of, actually these things are okay, this is human and it's fine to be human. So in the level 2 mindfulness we continue with that theme, and in particular we're looking at how can we respond to that which is difficult. Because being with might go quite a long way, and also there might be times when what we are being with is so painful or so unpleasant that we need something extra. We need like an extra, almost like a different power or a different source of energy. So sometimes it's said that compassion is when loving kindness meets difficulty or suffering. So we've been cultivating this loving kindness already, and then when difficulty comes up, either in ourselves or in others, then that flow, that wellspring of loving kindness, when it meets that suffering, it turns into compassion. So it's something that we all have, that we're all familiar with, and training in this particular way can help to cultivate our compassionate capacity and can really help us to continue building on our attitude of basic friendliness, kindness to ourselves and to others. One of the definitions of compassion that we work with in this course is the definition that the Dalai Lama gave, which is that compassion is the sensitivity to suffering in both self and others, and the strong commitment to try to relieve it, to try to prevent and relieve it even. And one of the things I really like about this definition is that it really emphasizes that compassion is both for ourselves and for others. Often in the first module of the compassion there can be a little bit of a sense of, compassion is a big thing, and it somehow is something that I should be able to do for others. And within this training we really get to that point, but we do start with ourselves. In our culture, the compassion for ourselves is usually not so emphasized on, and can even feel a bit self-indulgent or a bit awkward in the beginning. So to quite gradually be introduced to different ways different approaches into how can we tap into that force of care for ourselves when in difficulty, that then in turn enables us to be present with others when they're experiencing difficulty. Because it's difficult to be with others who are suffering, right? So often there's not actually that much of a distinction even between compassion for self and others. So one of the things I really like about this training is how it, maybe even more than the Mindfulness Level 1 course, that it has so many different practices which are a way in for different people. Some people really take to the imagery practices and to through that kind of almost like a mind way of into the heart feelings. And other people might respond more to the body way in, to the compassionate body scan, to the hand on heart gesture, the kind of very embodied and real way of being with what is difficult. So we have this whole range of offerings and different practices. And the other thing I really like about it is how it draws from different streams which are not in conflict with each other, but are really building on each other. Really, they really enhance each other, I think. So one of the sources of inspiration is Tibetan Buddhism, or maybe Buddhism in general, but maybe Tibetan Buddhism in particular, through our kind of connection with this lineage through our founder, Rob Nairn. So the Buddhist practices have a lot of, many years of experience of training people in compassion, and the 4 immeasurable qualities of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, they come into the training at some point, all with very well designed practices that you can use to train these qualities in yourself. And the other stream that informs this training is the evolutionary psychology, particularly as developed by Professor Paul Gilbert. So it's got this scientific, researched approach as well as this very ancient Buddhist approach, and together they've been woven in a way that really sits well in the secular mindfulness program. The Mindfulness Level 2 program is suitable for anyone who has done the Level 1 and who would like to continue deepening their practice and their understanding of mindfulness. And I've often heard people say at the end of these compassion modules, oh, now the mindfulness, the Level 1 is starting to really make sense. And it really seems to be something about the attitude, about giving that a lot of attention. How do we pay attention? How do we relate to ourselves and to others? And that is where mindfulness kind of really comes home in a very personal and embodied way. So this program is really suitable for anyone. But if you are teaching mindfulness already, the Good Practice Guidelines of the UK Network for Teachers, they recommend that you do continual professional development, and so this Level 2 can be your CPD for the year. And you can either do it in 3 weekends that are in any of the local places, courses happening in Edinburgh, in London, in Samiling, everywhere, but also you could do it in the format of doing 1 weekend and then a week retreat. And it's more or less the same material, but by doing it in retreat form, you also cover that element of your CPD, that you have to do a retreat each year. So for me personally, these modules on responding with compassion have been really, really important in my life. And I've been practicing mindfulness for many, many years, and I have to kind of admit to doing it with a subtle attitude of self-improvement, of somewhere in the back of my mind, and sometimes not even just at the back of my mind, but a sense of I need to do this practice in order to be good, in order to be the best version of me, in order to improve myself, in order to get better and be more loving to people, but with quite a harshness and quite a through gritted teeth approach to it. And even though I'd heard many times that it's all about loving kindness and you can be kind to yourself, and it just hadn't really clicked until somewhere in these modules Rob Nairn gave this what is now quite a legendary talk, where he was talking about it's okay to be a compassionate mess. We don't have to be perfect in order to be compassionate with ourselves. We don't have to be squeaky clean, totally together, some kind of version of perfect it's okay to work with ourselves just as we are. And the radicalness of landing with ourselves in that way, of saying, okay, so this is who I am. Can I be okay with that? And it was somehow in that talk that the penny really dropped. And this one took place in Samiling, and there were lots of people at that time. These courses, they were massive. There were like 80 people. And I remember this feeling in the room that everyone had this sense of, wow, we can be a compassionate mess. It's okay to be kind to ourselves. And one guy who was sitting next to me, he'd probably been practicing for longer than I'd been alive at that time, and he said to me, have I been deaf all these years? So I really believe that this level 2 has the potential to be radical and to be transformative to that level. This sense of when the penny really drops, that actually we are okay. That actually our mud, our messy humanity is a very workable place to start off from. And that's what I really love about this course. Of all the different programs that the Mindfulness Association delivers, I have to admit that this is my favourite, because there's such a sense of becoming really real with ourselves and each other. We wear our messiness a bit more on the outside, rather than, in the mindfulness programs of level 1, there can still be a bit of a, I'll be a good mindfulness practitioner. And by now, we know that we're just our messy selves, and that's more than enough. And it's a lot more comfortable to live life from that way. And also that sense of humour that we get with the lightening up of, it's messy, but it's okay. That really translates into relationships and into, to the way that we are with other people. So, although the material is different in the sense that there's quite a lot of new practices in the level 2, it very much builds on everything we've learned in module 1. So the settling, grounding, resting, support is still the core practice, but now it gets infused more with caring and responding with compassion to that which might be difficult in our experience. So it's not so much different as that it's just a next step. It builds on it quite seamlessly